All right, everyone, welcome back to my podcast, Nutrition Rewired. Today we have a very exciting episode lined up as we dive into the world of Ayurveda and its profound impact on gut health. And as you know, I'm very passionate about all things gut health, but Ayurveda adds a whole new layer of ancient wisdom into how we can nourish our microbiome. And this is not my expertise. So that is why today we have Dr. Shivani Gupta as an Ayurvedic doctor who has some incredible insights as to how we can support our digestive health. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Shivani. I'm super excited to have you.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So how long have you been practicing in this space? And I guess what kind of got you interested?
Well, growing up, I grew up in Houston, Texas with my parents, but we went to India every year of my life. So as I
Wow.
went back and forth all the time between India and the US, I always thought, wow, these two countries approach health very differently. I was being managed
Mhm.
very differently. So when I went to India and I had stomach upset, my grandma would take the spices and heat them up. She had her own teas and concoctions that she used to heal me. Versus when I was in the United States, I'd go to the pediatrician, she'd give me a prescription, I would take it. I remember loving amoxicillin because it tasted like bubble gum back then. And I would just, I had that often, frequently. And so eventually, by the time I hit high school, I was sick all the time, taking antibiotics, stronger and stronger antibiotics. Finally, I got to college and I said, you know what? This is not working. Apparently, everyone else has an immune system and I don't. And that's not fair. And so I went out there and said, okay, what do I do? And we were in India at the time when I was super sick one time. And I said, you know what? We're in the land of yoga and Ayurveda. Can we go see if that has something for me? And I went on this journey and this quest through India. I went to all the Ayurveda detox centers, sat at the guru's feet, and were like, I was just trying to understand, like, does the system work? And
Mhm.
it completely worked and it completely healed me. It rebuilt my gut health. Now I have an
Wow.
immune system of steel that I love. And because of it, I became very passionate. I was like, well, this system works, but how do I, bring it back into bite-sized pieces so in the West we'll apply it to our lives and
Mhm.
use it and allow it to be this powerful preventive system of health for us so we don't have
Mhm.
the problems that I've always had.
Wow, that's amazing. That's incredible. India is a place on my list of, destinations to go and for many of the reasons that you listed of just the way that they have these different practices from yoga to their approach to health and wellness and supporting the immune system and treating modern illness. It is, there's a lot that we can learn.
For sure.
Yeah. So for those who might be new to the concept, what is Ayurveda?
Sure. So Ayurveda is this entire system of health, healing, and medicine from India that's over 5,000 years old. And
Wow.
within this system, we have a lot of different topics that we cover. And what's cool is even back then, they talked about all the subspecialties of medicine, all these different ways that we can use herbs, spices, and lifestyle to bring body, mind, and spirit into alignment. That's the goal of Ayurveda. It's this acknowledgement that we're not just a physical body. We are also our mental health. We are also our emotional health, and all of that being in alignment helps us be the most joyful, spiritually aligned person we can be in this lifetime. And so, under the umbrella of Ayurveda, I have created my own system called Elemental Design. And within that umbrella, I teach about your dosha or your individual mind body constitution, and that elemental force being the driving force throughout the rest of your life. I teach about circadian rhythm and how the
Mm.
circadian clock is driving a lot of the things around us and driving our health in the right direction or the wrong direction. And so living according to circadian rhythm is from Ayurveda. Then we
Mhm.
talk about how to eat and when to eat, because a lot of times in the West, we are totally screwing up how we eat and when we eat. And that's causing a lot of trouble for us, a lot of obesity and metabolic disease. And so
Mhm.
Ayurveda had a lot of wisdom around how we eat, more so than even what we eat. Ayurveda teaches us what to eat, but how you eat is also really important.
Mhm.
Then Ayurveda teaches about the herbs and spices. I call that the mindful medicine chest. Like, how do you open up this pharmacy, FARM, of
Mhm.
herbs and spices and super spices that can benefit you?
Mhm.
And then we talk a lot about the self-care rituals, the daily self-care rituals for detoxification that help clean and clear the deck, clear the lymphatic system, clear our inflammation, and help us win at our health overall. And
Mhm.
then finally, I teach a lot about gut health and gut digestive fire because gut health is the center of all health. And
Mhm.
it's so cool that Ayurveda 5,000 years ago already knew your gut is your immune system, it's your mental health, it's your brain health, it's everything, it's your vitality. And so
Mhm.
by rebooting gut health, we have this opportunity then to build vibrant health.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, I'm excited to dive into each of these different topics that you just mentioned. Can we start with the way that we eat? And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on kind of our modern eating patterns, because what I see a lot in practice with clients, and especially since intermittent fasting has become really popular, is I see clients skipping like meals during the day and then eating their largest meals at night. And when I'm working one on one with clients, I'm telling them, just digestive wise, this doesn't typically make sense to me because of circadian rhythm and, the way our metabolisms work. So maybe you could speak to circadian rhythm and eating and digestion, and then also just kind of some of the principles of Ayurveda in terms of like chewing our food, slowing down, like not eating cold fluids near our meals, like things that, as someone who struggled with digestive issues my whole life, they always just kind of aligned with me. I would just kind of would crave warmer fluids and I wouldn't go towards these things, or I would notice I would be more bloated if I would eat really fast. But I want to learn more about it in terms of your practice.
Sure. So Ayurveda teaches us that there's a circadian clock, and that is nature's clock. We
Hmm.
live according to the annual cycles, the annual seasons that we see. The moon cycles we know have an impact on the planet. The moon causes the tides to rise and fall. Like there's such an impact of nature all around us. And even our bodies are tied to that. We don't think we are. We think, oh, I can do whatever I want. But with the advent of light and all the things we have now, a lot of us just defy nature's clock completely. We don't rise with the sun, we don't set with the sun, we don't sleep on time, all those different issues. And so Ayurveda teaches that our job is rise with the sun. You leverage that energy of nature first thing in the morning. Go outside, look at the sunlight. Don't like burn your eyes, but looking at the sun and resetting your circadian clock for the day creates that sleep pressure that we want for nighttime. And we also teach to have a small breakfast. And I know that right now we're talking a lot about intermittent fasting. I always try everything on myself. I work with my clients and say, look, let's try everything and let's see how the body responds because we are so different. Ayurveda very much acknowledges we have different constitutions, we have different doshas, we have different makeups. So while intermittent fasting might be great for someone else, I have a very fiery constitution. I need food and I need it in an interval and I need to be fueled or else this brain doesn't work and the system doesn't work at all. And so I'm constantly having tea, I'm constantly hydrating to manage myself throughout the day.
Hmm.
But Ayurveda teaches small breakfast, big lunch. 10 to 2 on the circadian clock is what we call pitta time of day or fire time of day. So that when the sun is highest in the sky, you have the most digestive fire and support to digest your food and absorb its nutrition. So if you're going to eat seeds, nuts, all the different foods we eat sometimes that are harder to digest, lunchtime is the time to do it, not dinner time. We're meant to eat a small dinner. But what's interesting is with today's schedules, we work and work, then some of us have kids, and you finally sit down and you want a meal that's like satiating and comforting. But that's why in Ayurveda we have a whole set of foods that are warming and nourishing without being so dense and heavy and hard to digest because you want to finish your foods in time for bedtime. We consider 10 to 2 on the clock at night the most important time that you sleep as well, because on the circadian clock, you want people to have that fire come through and clear out your inflammation, clear out your lymphatic system and do its job. But if we don't sleep on time at 10, we push that too far towards midnight, we lose that opportunity to clear the lymphatic system, which can collect up to 3 pounds of waste in the body throughout the year, and the lymphatic and inflammation systems and gut health and everything. So really honoring that 10 o'clock bedtime means finishing dinner by 7, which
Hmm.
sounds hard for a lot of people based on where their day ends. And even I myself go through periods where I'm not eating finished by 7. I'm like, you just sacrificed your entire nighttime of detoxing because you didn't eat on time. And so just understanding all the different nuances around gut health sounds like a lot, but what I like is once you start implementing these things and feeling better, you won't mess them up. Like it'll become part of your lifestyle and who you are. But
Hmm.
Ayurveda does teach a lot about when we use cool foods, when we use warm foods, not drinking ice cold water when you walk into a restaurant. It just turns off the digestive fire. Instead
Hmm.
of having a hot tea and really stoking our fires to be ready to digest.
Yeah. Yeah. So during my gut healing journey, I really struggled with acid reflux and thankfully don't experience that anymore. But one of the practices that I adopted very early on in my life was eating an earlier dinner and not having my largest meals at the end of the day. And then, I've gone on vacation or been around people where we're eating late, and it's incredible the difference of how I feel the next day. Like I noticed that I do not feel like I've had all that kind of what I call like the Zamboni effect, where things have just been like cleared away and refreshed.
Yeah.
And, we also look at melatonin secretion, right? Melatonin, that hormone that's secreted at night, it lowers our stomach acid. And so, again, just thinking scientifically, it doesn't make sense that we'd be eating our largest meals at night. So, yes, it is very challenging. And so when we talk about these practices, I always try to be very sensitive to like, okay, people actually need to consider how is this going to be realistic for their lifestyle. And, a lot of my clients are struggling with their lunchtime the most. I would say lunchtime is the place where clients struggle the most because oftentimes they work with like CEOs or people that are really focused in the middle of the day, and the fact of eating is just like, I don't want to be weighed down, I don't want to think about it, I don't have to prepare it. But that is like one of the most important meals of your day. They say breakfast is, but I would say, that's bridging the gap, because what you do at lunch defines what you do at dinner. And when you get to dinner, if you have not had a substantial, nourishing lunch, you're going to be super hungry, super irritable, you're going to overeat, it's going to mess up your sleep. And then it's like the cycle just continues. You wake up feeling like crap, you grab your coffee, and then it repeat that same exact day over again. So it makes wonderful sense that we could try to work on these habits. And if you have any advice for listeners on how to do that, I'm sure we could help them out a little bit.
Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, and when I'm in my office, I always tell my team, listen, our health is our priority. We get to build a really cool health company here, but that doesn't mean we're sacrificing our health along the way. And so when I
Mhm.
moved into that office, all we had was a microwave. And I was like, just, I'm never going to use that. I have no use for a microwave. I'm not killing my food. And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, I need a toaster. I need a fridge. I need a proper tea kettle that boils my
Mhm.
water. I don't microwave water. But slowly, I've been able to shift people's perspective. So now people, before they microwave anything, they think of me because they feel guilty because they know like there's no reason to use something that's going to kill your food. You're about to eat that food. Now, I granted have used a microwave in a pinch on trips and in different places, but 99% of the time, my goal is to avoid using the microwave. So I really think of it as if your health is an investment and if your health is important to you, you have to figure out the food piece. Unfortunately, the body is fueled by food. We need the nutrition, we need those vitamins and minerals. We need all of that for our gut health, for all systems to work. So for me, food is the first thing, and I make sure that I pack my lunch and take it to work. I know so many people who order in lunch every day, and I'm like, you guys, you have no control over that oil quality, that ingredient quality, all that could be really harmful to you. And then when we talk about our energy levels around 3, 4 o'clock, when the energy tanks, if you're reaching for coffee and sugar, it's because you
Mhm.
weren't getting the support you needed. And then also, a lot of people are like, I had a salad for lunch because you're trying to be healthy. But I really do think of that as shooting yourself in the foot because you think, oh, wow, I'm having salad, I'm having fiber, I'm being so good. But literally, you're only filling that gas tank a bit. And then you're hitting dinner starving. Um,
Mm.
and so I really kind of design my day and my life around the food that I eat. I carry it to work in glass Pyrex dishes. I bake it in the oven. I eat it. Sometimes I do think I waste too much time on lunch. I'm like, I have more work to do. I don't even want to eat lunch. It's going to shut down my brain. But I really also just remind myself that, look, we have to pause for lunch. We know lunch is the most important meal of the day. So my same dinner the night before is my lunch the next day. I just drop it down a few notches when I'm eating it at dinner. And I know I can give myself more carbs and maybe drop some hemp seeds or something more nutritious on top that's harder to
Mhm.
digest at lunchtime.
Yeah, that's great. So what you're saying, I think is a really important message is what is important to you? Like what is important to you, and your health has to be a priority. And if we don't make it one, then we're going to suffer in other ways. And we just have to be okay with that, with those consequences if we don't make, for instance, lunch that priority. And Yes, it is hard to slow down. It is hard to, chew your food and prep a meal, but there's not, you don't have to overcomplicate it. There are easy meals that we can lean on. So the kind of cold, warm types of food. So you mentioned that, like not drinking ice cold water. I've never been a cold water drinker. Like it's just one of those things where, I mean, I run cold to begin with, so having cold water doesn't make me feel good, but can you speak to kind of just digestive wise, what is so beneficial about the warming of foods for digestive health?
Sure. So in Ayurveda, we think of our digestion as the gut digestive fire. And that fire is meant to be honored and revered. And so if you imagine this campfire within you, your job in the morning is light it up, get it going. So in Ayurveda, we recommend things like ginger lemon tea. Ginger's a warming herb. It's a warming plant. It's going to warm up the system and get things turning and burning. That
Mhm.
lemon juice is alkaline, so it's going to get the system supported and also get the acids flowing and the digestive system flowing the way we want to. Then we've got aloe vera juice. We love aloe vera juice in the morning. I take a shot every morning, and that's my way to get things moving and started. We want everyone to have a glass of warm water or room temperature water even before they start any caffeinating. So today I ran
Mhm.
out the door and I was like, you are not allowed caffeine until you hydrate. Sorry. So caffeine's delayed until you make the time to hydrate because our
Mhm.
system needs support. And in Ayurveda, we're pretty obsessed with people's bowel movements. We want to ensure that that's happening every day, like clockwork. And so a lot of our morning practices support you in having the healthiest bowel movement before you start your day. And then
Mhm.
as you go through your day, think of the campfire. So you can have breakfast, but then allow the campfire to kind of shut down, not completely, but close down that fire, wait till lunch. The problem is a lot of us are munching. So at my desk, I generally don't leave any snacks or anything because I'll be like, oh, let me have one more, let me have one more. But if you had a campfire in the forest, you wouldn't burn the fire the whole time you were there camping. You would open it up, get it started using all sorts of small, medium, and large twigs. That's our gut microbiome diversity. Then you'd use it, shut it down for the next meal, lunch, open it up, use it, shut it down, and then dinner, and then close it for the night so that the body has this time to go through and heal everything else. So we teach cold things are going to shut down the fire. And not all of us have the strongest fire to process those cold foods. So based
Mhm.
on your constitution and the elements you have, let's say you're more air, you might not have the strongest fire. I'm more fire. So I have this fire within me. And then people who are more earth and water energy, they also lack the digestive fire to digest everything that's raw and cold. And so play with, should I be eating warm soups and stews, more cooked foods, steamed foods? That might be easier for your system to digest, and then you'll get the results you want. We're not all meant to eat big cold salads. It's just not
Mhm.
the case. We are bio individuals. So just because a food is being sold to us as a superfood, healthy food that we all need to eat, that's simply not true because we are
Mhm.
so bio individual. And Ayurveda teaches us look at your elements to know the truth for you.
That's beautiful. Yeah, the individuality is a very big positive for me as a dietitian, and working with so many different clients, and some who really benefit from snacks and some who really don't, and they really do well with that, time between meals. Or I would say, because of the digestive focus of my practice, most of my clients do not tolerate big raw salads, and they've identified that as a big trigger. Or maybe they're not aware because, like you said, they're being sold all these messages on social media, or, even when you walk into a restaurant and you see, oh, that's a low calorie option, or, that's going to be healthier for me, when in reality, it's actually not going to sit well with your gut, and you're asking your system to do a lot just to break all that food down. So I love that you mentioned that. The morning routine that you mentioned, aloe, I love aloe. It's so great for patients with inflammatory bowel disease. I definitely notice it helps with constipation personally if I'm ever feeling backed up or sluggish. Contains natural digestive enzymes, which can support digestion as well. So for those listening, maybe incorporate some of those things that Dr. Shivani is talking about, because coffee can be part of your routine. Like, we're not saying you can never have coffee or caffeine, but try incorporating some of these healthier starts to your day as well as a nourishing breakfast, and just see if that does anything different for your digestive system and energy levels throughout the day too.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So herbs and spices, they're a huge part of your practice, which I love. You have your PhD in turmeric, which I was very excited to see because I did my thesis on turmeric. So that was a very nice thing that we had in common there. Can you tell me a little bit more about turmeric and even other spices like fennel and cumin that are very commonly used in a lot of the Ayurvedic recipes?
For sure. So turmeric is by far my favorite. When I was sitting in herbology class doing my master's, I fell in love with all the benefits. Turmeric can do so much for us. And so when I did that dissertation, back then it was 10,000 scientific studies in PubMed. Now we're up to 17,000 scientific studies. It is one of the most well-studied botanicals because of its impact on inflammation. It
Mhm.
is a very powerful and natural anti-inflammatory that can stand up against a lot of the painkillers people are taking for their chronic joint pain and things like that, which is huge. But it's also a very powerful antioxidant. It reverses the things that are causing oxidation in the body in the first place, which I love because as we all age and we feel the creaks and aches in our bodies, I need that support to keep me like moving and free and happy. What
Mhm.
I also love about it is it's a very powerful antiviral, antibacterial, and antifungal.
Mhm.
That's huge because to me, with little kids who run around with their colds, I need my immune system completely defended at all times. So I
Mhm.
use turmeric as my insurance policy for that. And then I also love that it has other far-reaching effects. From an anti-aging standpoint, we know it affects sirtuins, AMPK pathways, telomeres. There's a lot of applications there. We know that right now, one of the big issues we're dealing with as a society is chronic metabolic disease. So turmeric is anti-obesity. When we're inflamed, we have a hard time losing weight. So getting out of that cycle of inflammation is very important. And we also know inflammation is the root cause of so many different diseases. And so I
Mhm.
love that Ayurveda has so many herbs that have applications across the board. You can take turmeric for pain, you can take turmeric for your immune system, you can take it for prevention, you can take it for a lot of different things. But it's kind of like that Swiss Army knife of all solutions, which I like because as a mom, as an entrepreneur, I need like quick and easy.
Mhm.
And then my next favorite one after that is actually ashwagandha. I think
Mhm.
ashwagandha has so much application. Turmeric has benefits for cognitive support and everything as well. We know it's supportive for dementia and things like that. Ashwagandha is another one that's good for cognitive support and
Mhm.
strength and vitality. It helps if we are feeling stressed and anxious, it calms us down. If we're feeling low and depressed, it lifts us up. So it's an adaptogen. And I love that Ayurveda even reached into the entire adaptogen class like that to give the body support, but with such intelligence built into how that support is given.
Mhm.
Cumin seeds I love because we use them a lot. Ayurvedic cooking and Indian cooking uses cumin because it's a pre-digestive. It helps us support the digestive process and digest our food better. So anytime you cook an Indian dish, you're going to heat oil and heat cumin seeds first to
Mhm.
support the digestion of that food that you're about to consume. And then
Mhm.
we love fennel because fennel has fiber. Fennel supports digestion. So a lot of times if someone's having post issues like acid reflux, bloating, any issues after, it's going to help them digest that food better and soothe things down. It has a more cooling effect afterwards. So that's why when you eat in Indian restaurants, they have that bowl afterwards with fennel because they
Mhm.
know that they've given you way too many spices for your system that you might not be used to. And they're trying to cool everything down and kind of support that digestive process.
Mhm.
So there are so many spices. We use cilantro. We use a spice called hing that I love. That's another powerful one for digestion. And we have so many healing foods like ghee, khichdi, and different things. But Ayurveda really has an entire toolkit for healing the gut and then adjusting the foods we eat every day to have the spices necessary to digest them better.
That's wonderful. And a lot of the spices, herbs that you've mentioned that can be added to food are, they can be friendly for people with acid reflux, for example, or people with gastritis, things like cumin or turmeric, they are a great way to flavor food and add a lot of health benefit without exacerbating those types of conditions. Now, my biggest takeaway from the research when I was studying the effects of curcumin and turmeric is that just sprinkling a little bit of turmeric on your food is not going to do it. And so, can you speak to what is like a general recommended dose for optimal health for turmeric or curcumin? What should people look for in a supplement? Should it be paired with black pepper for systemic absorption? Like, what is the best way to be using it?
Sure. So when it comes to the turmeric plant, only 3% of it is the curcuminoids. And of those three curcuminoids, curcumin is the most effective at reducing inflammation. And so in ancient India, we didn't use it in the raw form. We'd sometimes use it like a radish or a pickle, but it wasn't really used in the raw form, the way people are juicing it and using it so much now. We took it and dried it into the spice and used turmeric, the spice, in tons of our foods. My house, we buy it by the pound and we cook with it. But I don't consider that an effective way to significantly reduce inflammation. Nowadays, we are so inflamed as a society. We know that it's chronic, low grade, persistent inflammation that's wreaking havoc in our bodies and causing damage just from the nature of how inflammatory life is now. And so I really do think that we have to take curcumin at a high dosage, at a high potency to get the result. But the problem is in the supplement world, people can play a lot of games. You can make supplements of any quality and sell it. And so a lot of times I'll see supplements on the market that say curcuma longa, 1000 milligrams. I'm like, you guys, that's regular turmeric powder. What are you doing? Or you see many supplements, they have no black pepper or healthy fat. And I'm like, guys, it's called Google. It's kind of basic. You need something to help it absorb. It doesn't easily absorb in the system. And
Mhm.
so while I prefer curcumin with black pepper, I think it's a wonderful combination. We have thousands of scientific studies proving the benefits of that combination. So I lean on that one more. And then some people prefer liposomal curcumin. They reach for curcumin with a healthy fat. The best way around that is just take your curcumin black pepper with a meal. So you'll get the added benefit of the healthy fat. But I worked in the lab in Houston where the scientists discovered that it's black pepper that increases the absorption of turmeric by 2000%. And so
Mhm.
I like to go in that direction. And we know black pepper is beneficial for igniting and absorbing, supporting our absorption of so many different spices.
Mhm.
But in the supplement world, when I finished my PhD, I kept telling everyone turmeric's the best thing ever. You should take turmeric. You have a
Mhm.
cold, take turmeric. You have a knee pain, take turmeric. And so my family at the time was like, you should just make your own. And so I went on this journey to make my own, but I quickly realized you have to be very careful in the supplement world. And if
Mhm.
you make it in the US, third party tested, and are really on top of things, then you can make something that's potent and delivers a result.
Yeah, I also have a line of gut health supplements that is specific for like probiotics and whatnot, and everything's third party tested. And I tell clients like when you're buying, always ask the buyer for a certificate of analysis, ensure that they're third party tested because it's like the wild wild west out there.
It
So it's
is.
great to hear that you're also doing that and taking care of your clients and putting out a good quality product. And when you're passionate about it,
Yeah.
you want people to feel good. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a
I want
great.
people to feel the difference. I want them to understand we don't have to live in pain. Like
Mhm.
right now, I have plantar fasciitis. And so
Mhm.
this week I was like, guess what? You should just take extra turmeric. Like you
Mhm.
make the solution for this. Let's go.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and then also a lot of the pain remedies that we're using, like you mentioned, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, I always tell clients it's like dropping a bomb on your gut. The patients that come to me with diverticulitis, with gastritis, or inflammatory bowel disease flare-ups, typically will be coming off of a round of these high dose NSAIDs or just using it for knee pain or just chronic migraines or whatever. And they have no idea that there's alternatives out there that are actually supportive of your gut, like, for example, what you were just talking about with turmeric.
Absolutely. I took NSAIDs for 10 days after I had my first child because I had plantar fasciitis. I went to PT, and back then they were like, don't worry about it. Just take, this NSAID 24/7, 10 days. I did that because I was like, whatever it takes, I need to be out of pain. If that'll fix it, sure.
Hmm.
Afterwards, I had such bad stomach pain every time I ate food. And I was like, wait a minute. You solved my problem, but you caused a new problem. Now I have to
Hmm.
heal my gut. So that changed my whole perspective. I was like, we need solutions for pain that don't cause damage. Like, that's not
Hmm.
fair. And
Yeah.
so that's what led me to do what I do now.
Yeah. And of course there's times where people have to be on those. And so like you
Sure.
said, there's gut repair that we can do after with things like L-glutamine and mucilaginous herbs like marshmallow, slippery elm, like those can be so soothing. We always have to have the disclaimer of like, there are going to be times when you have to take an antibiotic. There are going to be times
Sure.
when you might need an NSAID, but knowing that there's things that we can do to help your gut, support your gut during and after is hopefully encouraging to the listeners.
Absolutely. And I tell people if you're going to prepare for surgery, some people are so scared of surgery. I'm like, I'm actually pretty afraid of it too. But when I need one, I just prepare for it like a marathon. Like I
Hmm.
know 6 months from now I'm getting a surgery. Okay, great. Let's plan for it. Let's build
Hmm.
the gut. Let's rebuild the body. Let's build all systems to be so strong that when you
Hmm.
walk in there, you're going to get this phenomenal result and your bounce back and reboot back into normal life is
Hmm.
easier. And so I think there's ways to use like what you're talking about, probiotics and all these
Hmm.
things to support ourselves to be our strongest and best
Hmm.
before these things happen. And that's also an argument for building the resilience every day so we
Hmm.
have it on hand in case something comes at us.
Yeah.
Whenever something comes up in my health, I'm like, I am so glad I'm already defended and ready. I don't
Hmm.
have to deal with this. Like colds will come by and I'll be like, I'm stuffy. And next day I'm like, I'm fine.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Gut, you did a great job.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the way you described like training for a marathon, as someone who is a runner and also just having gone through pregnancy, I wish that more women would think of pregnancy like training for a marathon, the way that you're moving and exercising your body and the way that you're eating and taking care of your mental health and your relationship with food, like all those things. I truly felt like that was a journey of marathon training. And now breastfeeding, it feels like my marathon number two, but there's things that we can do if we take a more preventative standpoint. And I know that you are totally on board for that model of preventative medicine, and that's why it's so great to connect with you.
Absolutely. I wrote a book called The Conscious Pregnancy because I was so
Oh,
passionate. It was my master's thesis was that book. And
wow.
I was so passionate about if we prepared for pregnancy like a marathon and showed up so healthy, imagine how beautiful of a vehicle and vessel we are to produce the healthiest child. And
Hmm.
my hypothesis was, if you have an Ayurvedic pregnancy, will you birth Zen babies? And
Mm.
my cute babies were pretty Zen. But then, like all kids, they weren't Zen for a while, and I was like, I can't write a follow-up book because my kids are kids. They're active, but a lot of people tell me your kids are so sweet and so calm. What did you do? And I was like, I just lived the Ayurvedic lifestyle. Ayurveda teaches us we consume everything. We
Mhm.
consume the news, media, noise, chemicals, food. And in the case of pregnancy, it all goes to the baby. And so
Mm.
fertility is a big topic to me that's so important, how we detox and prepare for baby. Pregnancy itself, I'm passionate about. And then now that I'm in my 40s, it's very much about perimenopause, menopause,
Mhm.
and what we need as women to really
Mhm.
support ourselves for these marathons. Because
Mhm.
40s feels like its own separate new marathon where I'm
Mhm.
so grateful that I'm already in the habit of living the Ayurvedic lifestyle. I'm already in the habit of doing the work so that as these new things come at me, I'm like, okay, it's just an
Mhm.
adjustment of lifestyle. It's a bigger investment into health and lifestyle than I thought, but
Mhm.
I'm ready for it and I'm willing to do it. And at least I have like the foundation in place to
Mhm.
handle what comes at you as we go through these decades and have to adjust hormones and all these things.
Sure. I mean, the women that I work with, the ones that are already really taking care of themselves, they're recognizing like having a healthy relationship with alcohol and caffeine and movement and food. The ones that have been doing that the longest tend to tell me like, oh yeah, I didn't have as many like hot flashes or, things like that when I went through menopause. And then the ones that haven't thought about those things ahead of time, you can tell they have a much harder transition. So, I mean, it's if you can start early, there's no such thing as starting too soon. That's what I would say to anybody listening.
I agree. I agree. And that's what's so cool about Ayurveda. It's a
Hmm.
lifestyle, it's a
Hmm.
practice. It's
Hmm.
just remembering that you have a gut health, you have circadian rhythm, you have these things, and to prioritize them. And I try to fit self-care in little slices throughout the day. I try not to make it too complicated because then no one wants to pick up these habits. But if
Hmm.
you just show them that the rhythm that you build is the structure within which what you live,
Hmm.
with the structure within which you live, then all of a sudden things get easier. Because
Hmm.
once I get you in a rhythm, you feel so good. And then when you
Hmm.
step out of it, you're like, dang, that doesn't feel good at all. And you're
Yeah.
willing to click back into the rhythm. And I
Hmm.
do that with myself all the time. If I travel and get out of rhythm, I'm like, no, no, no. What is the habit that clicks me right back in?
Hmm. That's awesome. I love that mindset. Such a good shift. And you're right. If people don't feel like it's sustainable, then it's not going to be. So very, very practical advice. So you mentioned ghee. We talked a little bit offline about ghee and khichdi, I think is what it's called, the dish.
Yes, yes.
So khichdi is one, I made this for the first time actually when I had COVID. And I remember feeling like it was super nourishing. It felt like I mean, my symptoms were not that bad to begin with, but it felt like it really just helped me in so many ways in terms of inflammation, because we know that COVID is such an inflammatory viral load to the body. And so I consumed that for like a good period of time, not just during the infection, but post-infection as well. Postpartum, I think it's such a great thing to incorporate. And then ghee as well. You know, I'm someone who I don't do well with dairy products. Like my whole life, I just haven't done well with most dairy. Some dairy I'm fine with, like kefir, more fermented dairy products. But ghee is one in the category of things that just feels really good in my body. It feels great digestive wise. It seems to always help if I'm constipated. Um, can you explain maybe like why two of those, like the khichdi, the ghee, like what is it about these foods that, you know, from the practice of Ayurveda that are so nourishing to our bodies?
For sure. So ghee is a superfood. Ghee is this food from Ayurveda that we know builds back vitality, builds back something called ojas. Ojas is when you, for example, had a surgery or had a huge stressful event in your life that's kind of taken you down and taken down your system, maybe put out and extinguished your campfire. It's how you come back up and bring back your whole energy level and everything that you want again. And so ghee is one of those things that we use often. Ghee is just clarified butter. You boil butter and you take the cream off the top, and that's your ghee. And that ghee that you build, it has so many benefits. It contains butyrate, which is a fatty acid that can help reduce inflammation. It has omega-3 fatty acids, which we know is beneficial for heart disease. It helps with constipation. Anytime someone's constipated, I'm like, add 2 teaspoons of ghee on your food at dinner, you'll be fine. It's super easy. And I used that a lot when I was pregnant, and I was like, oh my gosh, this really works well.
Yeah.
It is rich in antioxidants and fatty acids. We know that it increases our intake of vitamin A in the body, which is important for our eye health, our skin, and everything else. What I think is cool is it contains medium chain fatty acids like MCTs, so it helps the body absorb and use it as energy, which is cool.
Mhm.
It's like it's exactly what Ayurveda said. It's for takat, as we call it, or strength or energy. It's also rich in vitamin K, which we know helps with calcium absorption and things like that. And then finally, we've used it for skin, we've used it for memory, for intellect. Like we really do think of ghee as this superfood that applies to everything. And so we cook with ghee. You can put ghee on top for extra nourishment if some people need it. Obviously, we shouldn't eat like 18 pounds of ghee. It is a fat, but appropriately, it can be used very well. And then khichdi is this beautiful superfood that we teach as part of most detox protocols. So if someone's having gut health issues, if their gut is off, gut is disrupted, we use khichdi, or it's a beautiful pre-detox and detox protocol food. It's just
Mhm.
basmati rice with split mung beans, with mung dal. And so when we take that lentil and rice, we basically pressure cook it with very minimal spices like cumin, hing, and salt, like the very basics of Indian cooking. And when you make it, it turns out to be like a porridge. And you eat this food, and it's so comforting and so nourishing. So you can do like a 3-day khichdi cleanse where you eat that and nothing else. And what you're doing
Mhm.
is you're giving the gut a rest so it can go and clean and repair and clean house and get rid of whatever it needs to. But you're also
Mhm.
giving yourself some sustenance and nourishment. You're not just starving the body.
Mhm.
And so khichdi can be very nourishing, very supportive. It's just one of those. It's funny. All of my clients who've tried khichdi are obsessed with khichdi, and as an Indian, when we're sick, we were always given khichdi. So
Mhm.
I'm always. It's not my favorite food, but
Mhm.
whenever I feel like gut is off because I've traveled, I'm like, just take a khichdi day, and everything will
Mhm.
reset itself.
That's awesome. You know, I'll tell you, I love that your approach is very refreshing in the sense that it doesn't seem like you're going towards like very restrictive type of diets or anything like that, which is so important. And I'm sure that aligns with just the practices of Ayurveda, you know, because I think there's a lot of stuff out there when we talk about detox and we talk about resetting, you just hear people like living off of water for 3 days. And I don't believe in my heart that that is a solution for people. There's other things that we can do to support detox and support reset and get your gut back to balance without this like diet culture restriction kind of messaging in there. So I want to thank you for that.
For sure. And I think nowadays we see so much about these diets, paleo, carnivore, keto, all of them. And of course, they're going to work for some subsect of people. But whenever I try them, I always test every diet. I'm like,
Mhm.
what would happen if I went into ketosis? And what would happen if I tried to do this? it rebels against every belief of Ayurveda. Ayurveda said
Mm,
we're meant to eat all the foods produced by Mother Nature. Yes, they might have lectins and all these things we prove nowadays, but
mhm,
there's ways to prepare and cook food so they're beneficial. All of
mhm,
Indians used to use slow cookers. Now we use pressure cookers because we know it reduces the lectin burden. Peeling your tomatoes. It's just the Sattvic diet, which is the Ayurvedic diet, is the yogic diet because Ayurveda and yoga are sister sciences. And so what I teach is nutrient density, nutrient variety, eat more
mhm,
organic, eat more fresh, bring it into your body. Because really the goal of Ayurveda is for us to be nourished. We want to be
mhm,
nourished. We want to be satiated. We want to
mhm,
be satisfied with what we're eating. But what I
mhm.
find is the modern diet culture and the way we're being taught is just trying to make us really pigeonholed, and we're cutting out all diversity. And then we're wondering why we don't have a healthy gut or immune system. And so it's
Yeah.
really about bringing things back in. Even I get health coaching on myself, bringing things back in because
Mhm,
I've been so programmed from the 80s of like, just cut all the fat out, just eat
mhm,
these foods. And even I have to remind myself, okay, fall is here now. Eat your
mhm,
fall foods, bring those things in
mhm,
because it's
mhm,
easier for many of us to just live a mono diet and that's all we execute and it's easier. And so
mhm.
the reminder is to bring that diversity back.
Yeah. And thank you for also humanizing the experience. And, I myself need to coach myself on certain things. And I always tell clients, I'm not perfect. I work on these things as well. And, we're all in this together and we all want to do well. We want to feel good. And that's the ultimate goal long term is to feel well.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been such an informative conversation, Dr. Shivani. You are such a wealth of knowledge, and it appears that Ayurveda, which is no surprise to me, offers so many practical, natural strategies that anybody can adopt into their lifestyle to improve their gut health, whether it's sipping warm beverages, adding spices, slowing down during meals. All of these things can make such a huge difference. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing these practices with the listeners today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Dr. Shivani has offered a discount code for her supplements, I believe for 15% off.
Yes. So the code is on nutrition and it'll give your listeners 15% off at fusionaryformulas.com. It's FUSIONARY. And then for all of my info, it's at drshivani.com.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully people connect with you offline here and learn from you. It sounds like you've got tons of amazing resources, and it was great to meet you, and hopefully we can chat again sometime soon.
For sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.